Possibly.
I'm sorry.
So and we've already talked about this. So
Yeah.
Um, just like when we're thinking about being comfortable in the body and we're finding our way into the body and finding stability and ease in the body through these principles or through whatever that you're using, we're coming into the body and we're engaging the nervous system that's more the parasympathetic nervous system. So when we're more in, which is the system that we want to be in, of course, for birth, because that's also the primal brain, the deep side of ourself in the brain and the nervous system and in the body that is responsible for giving birth. And so any tool that we have where we can move from the thinking, doing kind of constructed self and the fight or flight, sympathetic nervous system, and move more into parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest, feeling relaxed in the body, that is the most important thing that you can do for birth. One reason being that we're mammals. So if you think about any animal, any mammal that's going to have a baby, if they're feeling stressed or like they're not safe, they're not going to have that baby. And the physiological and nervous system and hormonal process that goes on with that is stress hormones are secreted into the body, cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine, adrenaline. Stress hormones are released at pretty high amounts into the system, and those hormones actually interfere with the birthing process, because when we go into labor we have a whole other set of hormones that go and become released from the pituitary, also in the baby's pituitary, and the process is initiated through the hormones. So when we're stressed and we have the stress hormones pumping, then what happens is the mechanics of the uterus, when a contraction comes, the uterus has muscles that move horizontally, vertically, diagonally, and they work in synchronicity to get the baby out. And the waves of contractions start at the top of the uterus, at the fundus, and kind of make a wave down, eventually thinning and spreading and opening the cervix. And so every time there's a contraction, that's what's happening. There's this orchestration going on in the uterus. And if we have stress hormones circulating in the body, and we're in the sympathetic nervous system, the muscle fibers of the uterus that work and the synchronicity that they go into is one of keeping the baby in and fighting each contraction. So what happens is longer, more painful labors. And that's just, we want to do everything we can to prevent longer, more painful labors. Whatever we can do. It's out of our control to a certain extent, but so I just think it's just the simplest, makes so much sense to play with different ways to be in your body. Free breathing, being relaxed in your body, that's going to put the nervous system into parasympathetic. So yielding and letting your weight actively give to the earth frees the breath. When we have free breathing, we're more in the parasympathetic nervous system, will rest and digest. The organs get the circulation. So also when we're stressed or afraid or fighting, the labor process can also put you in that state of fight or flight. And also what happens then is the circulation is taken away from the uterus and the baby and taken to the musculoskeletal system so that we can run and we can fight or we can get safe, because that's how we work. So there's just so many reasons, but I love how simple it is, that whatever we can do to just be totally, you know, mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, it's safe and we're good and everything's taken care of. So I love how moms and dads can work together in that process, and I love a role that can often be the role of the father of securing that space, you know, holding that space and making sure that there's no stress that's going to get into this bubble, you know, and there's no vibe and there's no phone call that's going to come in, or person that you don't want to talk to, or whatever. You know her, so you can know what would stress her and what would relax her, and you can kind of secure the doors, right? So I think that's really beautiful. And then you can, from there, just like we were playing with alignment and posture, you can play with what makes you feel better, what makes you feel more relaxed. You know, what is it for you that has you feel in your relationship, since birth is such an intimate, sacred experience, what would really nourish that ground in your relationship, you know? And then also I feel that that's also very important for labor and birth as well, because there's a funny article that was released not that long ago that states that the energy that gets the baby in is the energy that gets the baby out. And it kind of makes sense to me. Like it's stated like, well, if you didn't conceive your baby listening to Enya and lavender aromatherapy and, you know, humpback whales or whatever, then you're probably not gonna give birth to your baby, you know. So turn up the, you know, volume and, you know.
I was just thinking about that yesterday, like about what kind of music I wanted to hear during labor.
You know, be
and it's
free
decidedly
and
not,
you
like,
know,
new age.
open
Yeah.
and you know, it's that uninhibited space, because birth is so big and powerful and strong. The energy is so big and powerful and strong, and if we meet it being afraid or contracting, not just like being afraid of birth, but when that intense sensation is something you're actually grappling with face to face, to as much as possible be able to yield to it and open to it and let it move through. It'll move through and it'll pass, and then another wave will rise and then fall again. And sometimes what can help that is being, you know, intimate, loving, sexual, you know, maybe moving in very sensual ways. It has a very similar kind of energy to it. Does that make sense? So I like to have, I like to suggest that people like dance together, you know, turn on music that you would love to dance with each other too. So we're kind of starting to talk about early labor. And it's nice during early labor to think about what relaxes you. And do you want to take a nap? Do you want to take a bubble bath? Can you take a nap? You know, if you can, do, for sure. And if you can't, then what would relax you almost as well or as deeply as having a really restorative nap? So if it's a bath or a shower or dancing together very slowly or whatever works for you, a smell, a sound, you know, what is the really decadent, yummy food that you love that just makes you feel so good, you know, and just be in that space in early labor. What nourishes you? What nourishes your heart, your body, you know, and as much as possible, because a lot of times during early labor, there can be a strong